Hello everyone, my name is Toria. Today's video is going to be about the supplies that I use for making beaded appliques. I'm going to be doing a series of demonstration videos on a few beading techniques and designs. So this video is just a precursor to that, so you know about in detail the supplies that I'm using. The first thing that we need to discuss is the actual base of the fabrics that I'm using to bead on. You can use different things like this mesh. This is what I use most often. It is very inexpensive and it's easy to bead on and easy to blend into your costume. You can get different colors, like this one is white, or you can get one that's blue, pink, or whatever color to match your costume, and it makes it blend in easier. You can also use actual fabric from your costume to make the appliques, to bead onto it to make the appliques. This obviously is a good choice because it makes the blending process even easier. You can also use material like this. This is an interfacing. It's very strong and sturdy. However, this is a little bit harder to blend in with your costume, so you have to make sure you're cutting around the beads really tightly to get that to blend in. Another supply they're going to need is beading thread. Looks like this. There's different brands you can get. This is a brand I like to use. It's a 20 mm diameter. It looks like dental floss, but it's not. You don't want to use dental floss when beading because it tends to fray and break, and you definitely don't want to use regular sewing thread because that will also break and fray when it gets in contact with beads, especially glass beads that are sharp. Of course, you're going to need some scissors. I like to use small scissors to snip at the thread. Always have a nice supply of marking pens. These are invisible ink, so that when you trace around your stencil or the shape that you want, it will disappear. Well, this one is disappearing and this one is water soluble, so you can use water to erase the ink marks. Oftentimes you're going to use some type of measuring device, either a tape measure or a ruler. You need some actual beading needles. And this is my advice on beading needles. They are good for some things, but not good for all things. So beading needles are thin, pretty long, and flexible. They work when you're beading through things. They help to bend and move around. The problem with this is the fact that they're so thin and flexible that they're fragile. So I don't like to use them that often. They can be bent out of shape, they can break, and it gets really frustrating. The reason why you would need to use a beading needle is because they're very thin and they can fit through the small holes of beads like seed beads and bugle beads that have really small holes. However, I often use sharps or applique needles, which are just really thin needles, but they're not as thin as beading needles, and they're not flexible. And they're more rigid, and they can fit through almost all types of beads. Once in a while I'll get to a point where I'm using a bugle bead and they'll get stuck in it, so I'll have to switch out to a beading needle. Another supply that you want to get is a loop frame. This is used often in quilting. This helps that you can spread your fabric across it, and you can have kind of a hands-free type of sewing method because you don't want to hold your fabric and try to sew it at the same time. This will allow you to, this one actually attaches to the table with this grip. You just put your table between here and then you tighten it up, and that way your hands free. You can have this holding your fabric. I've seen ones that go across your lap, or I've seen ones that are freestanding like a stand that you can set your fabric on. You're going to need a variety of different containers. Like there's some that are sectioned off, or just easy Tupperware containers to hold your beads in it. Next, I'm just going to show you some examples of some different beads and embellishments and rhinestones and sequins that you can use on your costume. My advice would be to go with a higher quality bead and sequins because you are saving money when you're making your own costume, and at the end of the day, the effect that higher quality beads have on a costume really makes a difference. It takes your costume from being amateurish or cheapish looking to looking really nice and high quality. I would go with glass beads for every instance that I could. I would never use plastic beads or acrylic beads. I would never use acrylic or plastic rhinestones. It's not that expensive to get beads that are glass and high quality, and it really does make a difference and make your costumes look really nice. So let me show you some examples of what I have. The element of making appliques and beading appliques I want to talk about is rhinestone chain. They come in a lot of different sizes, and the rhinestones on them can be different colors and different finishes. This is silver, but you can get gold. It's really pretty, and it can make your costume really bling and stand out. And a little goes a long way. Next, we have several different shapes and sizes of sew-on rhinestones, hot fix rhinestones, of course. Glass crystals are always best. They really stand out and are really blingy. You can get hot fix rhinestones. However, I don't like to use hot fix that much because it actually takes a long time to hot fix each one on. I actually like to glue them down with a gym glue, like gym tack. Okay, here we have different sequences. These are actually called platelets, but you can get sequins in different colors and different shapes and different sizes. I would stick with a round one though, because you don't want it to be an odd shape that snags onto your costume. Okay, here we have some bugle beads. These are the ones that typically you have to use a beading needle for because the holes in them are so small. But these are the ones that are long in shape. Okay, then we have bicone beads. They are beads that look like kind of a diamond shaped, or looks like two cones. That's why it's called bicone. And of course, those comes in a lot of different colors and sizes. And glass beads always shined more than plastic. And then you have your seed beads. Of course, they come in different sizes as well and different colors. You also have pearl beads that I like to use a lot. These are blue pearl, glass pearl beads. You can get this multifaceted round beads. Those are really sparkly and shine a lot. And those are just round beads that have flat surfaces cut into it, also known as facets, and it makes them shine. You also have these beads that are typically called pendants. They look like little drops, but they also have facets on them. Helps them shine. And then you can get really creative and get all types of different beads in different colors and shapes and sizes. They make things out there now that are so beautiful that you can do just about anything with. And here's just some examples of different appliques you can make. This one uses bicone beads here around the edge, seed beads, rhinestones, rhinestone chain. And I have another one here that just uses the glass pearl beads and the large sew-on rhinestones and some sequences and some seed beads. And I'll have tutorials up on how I make these. Okay, and here's another one that just uses seed beads, rhinestone chain, some sew-on rhinestones. Those are just a few items and supplies that you're going to need when you get started making appliques for your belly dance costumes. Once you finish beading your applique, you want to sew that to your costume. A good rule of thumb is that you should always bead around the applique to make sure that it blends into your costume. You don't want it to look really cheap or amateurish that you just placed an applique onto your costume. However, I have seen a lot of high-end, high-fashion type of minimalist costumes that have beaded appliques that are just placed in strategic places and no beading around it whatsoever. Those are usually like medallion type things or little fancy appliques that are placed on the hip. The thing about these costumes is they use high quality and really shiny rhinestones and beads. So keep that in mind when you are designing your applique. Thanks for watching.